Deep in the heart of Milledgeville, Georgia, sits the abandoned remains of Central State Hospital, a place once known as the largest mental institution in the world. It opened its doors in the early 1840s, built with the promise of compassionate care for those struggling with mental illness. But as time went on, the hospital became infamous for overcrowding, mistreatment, and experimental treatments that would never be allowed today. The hospital was originally called the State Lunatic, Idiot, and Epileptic Asylum, a name that reflected the way mental health was viewed at the time. During the early 1800s, there was a growing movement across the country to build state-run hospitals for people suffering from mental illness. Georgia was no exception, and by the late 1830s, the state legislature had approved plans to create a facility in Milledgeville, which was then the state capital. When it first opened, the hospital was meant to be a place of care and rehabilitation. Doctors believed that fresh air, routine, and isolation from the pressures of society could help patients recover. The hospital sat on a large piece of land, allowing patients to farm, work, and live in a self-sufficient community. But as the number of patients grew, conditions quickly deteriorated. By the early 1900s, thousands of people were housed there, many of them forgotten by their families. Central State Hospital was home to people from all walks of life. Some were struggling with severe mental illness, but others were placed there simply because they were different. Women who were seen as difficult, people with epilepsy, and even those with developmental disabilities were admitted, often against their will. In some cases, families sent relatives to the hospital as a way to hide them from society, leaving them to live out their days within its walls. As the years went by, treatment methods became more extreme. Early psychiatric care was often experimental, with doctors using new techniques in an attempt to cure mental illness. Patients were subjected to hydrotherapy, where they were placed in ice-cold baths or wrapped in freezing wet sheets for hours. Electroshock therapy was another common practice, as was insulin shock therapy, which put patients into daily comas. Perhaps the most infamous of all were lobotomies, surgeries that severed connections in the brain, leaving many patients permanently damaged. The hospital continued to operate for over a century, with thousands of people passing through its doors. But as mental health care evolved and more humane treatments became available, large state-run institutions like Central State Hospital began to close. By the late 1900s,